Hello everyone, I greet in the name of God Almighty. My name is Apostle Nathan Silas and I'm here with Nancy Grace, and today guys we have a very interesting video to react to, and this one says that why would a benevolent God allow for suffering? And this video was done by Dr. Shabir. I believe that this is going to be a very interesting video. So if today happens to be the first time of you checking out my channel, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and follow me on my Facebook and Instagram. And if you have any video you want me to react to, don't forget to drop it at the comment section and I'm going to check it out. So guys, before we get on to the video, I'm a theologian and I make this video not to discredit anyone's religion. This is basically for educational purposes, and I believe that at the end of this video we all are going to learn from it. So guys, let's get down to the video and check this out.
Welcome to Let the Quran Speak. I'm excited to introduce you to Alex Elvidge, the lead writer on our team. Alex had some questions about Islam, so we invited her onto the set to ask them of Dr. Shabir. Here's the first. Why would a benevolent God who loves us and cares for us allow horrible suffering and tragedies to happen? Here's Alex with Dr. Shabir.
Dr. Shabir, thank you for being with us today.
Oh, my pleasure, and thank you for hosting.
So I'm going to ask you a question that I believe many believers and non-believers alike have for any religion or faith. Why would a benevolent God who loves us and cares for us allow for tragedies and evils to occur?
Yeah, this general question is very difficult for people of faith to answer, and sometimes it has actually driven people outside of their faith as they thought about the problem, and they could not come up with a reasonable answer. This question falls under the general topic of theodicy, the problem of evil, and how do we put a theological explanation for the problem of evil? How do we come up with such an explanation? Well, we can say that from the Islamic perspective, God would create a world if that world has an overwhelming amount of good things, even though it might have some evil compared with it, included in it, sometimes as side effects of creating the good things. So let me put this in perspective. Let's say on the one extreme we have a possible world which is totally good, so that's purely good. Definitely God will create something like this because he is benevolent and he wants to realize good things, so he will create the good world. Let's say something is totally evil. Well, God is not going to create that because by definition God is benevolent. He's compassionate and merciful in the Islamic tradition. He's not going to create something that is pure evil. But let's say there's something in between. There's a mixture of good and evil, and there could be a wide spectrum. So at some point God is going to draw the line and say, you know, this is more evil than good. I'm not going to create that. But then it becomes a little bit fuzzy, and then there's some things are like some possible worlds are clearly would have a great amount of good, but also some possible evil along with it. Would God create such a world? It seems to me that our world is such a one in which there is a great amount of good, but there are some evils. Some of these evils are clearly side effects of the good things that God has created and the good things that we enjoy. And the evils come as a necessary component of that. Now, we might then go back and think, well, wait a minute, since God is all-powerful, couldn't he just remove the evil? And the answer is yes, but then you're talking about a world that is purely good and has no evils. And probably God created that as well, and that is out there somewhere. And we can think of the world of angels. In Muslim theology, angels are purely good. So that is a world that God has created. It's not our earthly world, but it's a world. So this world is one of those that has a mixture of good and evil, and God will create such a world if the good in it is overwhelmingly so.
So is the purpose of creating this spectrum of good and evil in the world so that we as humans can learn from the sufferings that we endure?
That's one of the benefits of the evils. It's not necessarily the purpose. I can't conceive of God thinking, okay, let me whip them so that they will learn from the whipping. It must be that in thinking about the worlds that he could create, God realizes that here is a possible world. It will have some evils, but then even the evils that will be present in that world will have some silver linings behind them. In other words, that there will be some some beneficial aspects even to those evils. It's not that the evils are desirable for their own for their own worth or for the good that could come out of them, but the evils are tolerated because either they're necessary or because in any case they will lead to some good. So let's think about the fact that one of our community members was murdered at a mosque as he was guarding the doors, trying to restrict entry in compliance with rules to limit the spread of COVID-19. Well, I can't conceive of God thinking, okay, let's let this guy die so that, I'm going to kill this guy, cause the death of this guy in this gruesome way, so that the community could learn from it. No, it's probably the other way around, that God gives freedom to human beings to use their freedom either for good or evil. One person chose to use that freedom to murder another person, an innocent victim. But God is tolerating this because to not allow for this would mean to deprive human beings of their freedoms. And at the same time, God sees that even though this thing is very bad, it's terrible, it's horrible, but out of this, people will learn. People will learn how to upgrade their security measures. People will become more compassionate as a result of this. The compassion might be there in us and it's latent, but when something like this happens, it so horrifies us, it shocks us, that not only are we responding with compassion in this circumstance, but we come to even appreciate the value of human life in a way that we never thought of before. So some good things result from the bad happenstance. And God, in weighing all of the possibilities of what He can create and how to create, He is allowing for some evils, knowing that either these evils are necessary or that there are some redeeming factors that will come out of these evils.
So, Dr. Shabir, what you're saying all sounds great in theory, but right now, the entire world is suffering through COVID-19. This is a very real example of the kind of evils and the sufferings that you're talking about. How can the theories that you're talking about apply to what we're going through right now?
I have to confess that COVID-19 proves to be a very difficult problem to explain under the caption of theodicy. So those general theories sound nice, but when we come to COVID-19, we see that COVID-19, as if, at least in the inception, this was very clear that it started to attack persons with low immunity. It started to attack the elderly people. And that leads naturally to the question, well, like, why would God send a disease that would attack the vulnerable people? It doesn't seem to make sense. But if we apply the general theories again, we can see that we should not be saying that God is sending a disease that is attacking people. We should more rather say that God is allowing for the development of things like bacteria and viruses, and this particular virus, deadly as it is, could have been wiped out altogether by God, but we don't know all of the implications of that. Like, if scientists can now create a baby to be born with, without certain genetic deformities or something like this. Now, they still have to weigh carefully, if they remove one gene from a developing embryo, how would that affect the development of the embryo on the whole? Like, they know what they're trying to accomplish, but they don't know all of the side effects of what they're trying to accomplish, even though they're trying to do a good by removing something which they seem to be, which they see to be bad, but they may not know the whole picture. From our perspective, God knows the whole picture. So we might say, okay, why doesn't God just simply remove COVID-19 just like that? We don't need any vaccinations or anything. God just intervenes and He does the trick in a flash. Well, then there could be so many things that are connected in the world, and such that if God wants to remove this, then He has to remove so many connected things along with it. And that may lead to worse evils than the COVID-19 itself. So God may be permitting it because it has to be an evil that is tolerated by God, and at the same time, it will bring about some good. So now, here is the necessary part. It's necessary, so God is allowing it. And second, though it is bad, it may lead to some good, and not may lead to some good. In the calculations of God, it can be foreseen that a lot of good will come out of this. So one good that will come out of this is the scientists, in their race to develop an effective vaccine, will develop more science in general, because you don't just simply focus on one thing and then do that one thing only. The science develops as a body of knowledge, and to come up with the right solution for this, an effective vaccine, the whole body of scientific knowledge will advance, and that will lead to many more good things that science has been showing us that it's capable of, and many beneficial things for human beings. It leads to a greater compassion among human beings. As we see people suffering, the inner compassion rises to the fore. It's no longer in the back burner. It becomes in the forethought of human beings. We become more caring for other people. We start to practice better hygiene. And while we are trying to avoid the COVID-19 and the virus that causes it, we are at the same time, by practicing good hygiene, we are preparing ourselves for the future to prevent the spread of other diseases. By, for example, frequent hand washing, maintaining social distancing. We are just rethinking the way in which we have governed ourselves over the last couple of decades, and the way in which such governance could actually lead to our detriment in the future. So COVID-19, bad as it is, we can say in a nutshell, is permitted by God, probably because it is a necessary part of the development of life the way God has created it. And though it is bad, God is allowing it because it will have some beneficial side effects.
Yes, and in addition to the scientific advancements that are resulting from this pandemic, we also have the potential environmental improvements that are happening as a result of everyone being forced to stay home. And you mentioned the fact that this disease is specifically targeting the elderly and the infirm, people who have people who are immunocompromised. Often, when you hear people who are not in favor of the lockdown, they say, well, this disease is targeting people who maybe would naturally die more quickly anyway. Would you say that what this experience is teaching us is to value all members of society?
Yes, and in fact, if we didn't think about that at a philosophical level, then, you know, the young people who have said to themselves, you know what, this is only affecting the old people, we can go out and party now. And now we are seeing the results of that, in that the numbers are climbing up again, and at least in Ontario. And we are seeing that young people are starting to represent the majority of cases of new infections. Partly due to the partying, and may God save us all. And the one last thing, Alex, if you will allow me, is that from a religious and particularly an Islamic point of view, there is in the Quran the sense that if God were to leave people, I just want to mention one last point here, that if God were to leave people to just be free and do whatever they want, then people will forget God. And every once in a while, a calamity strikes, and then people turns back to God. So from the Quranic perspective, this is one of the benefits that come out of calamities. Again, we shouldn't think of God, just viciously in an vengeful manner, just deciding to send a pestilence on the people. But one of the good things from the Quranic perspective that come out of calamities is that people come to realize that we are not alone in the universe. And we're not the final arbiters and controllers of our futures. There are so many unexpected and unknowns in our world, and the best way of coping with all of these unknowns is, first of all, to develop science the best we can, to develop our own procedures and ensure our own safety the best we can. So we apply all of the means that are available to us, but at the end, the second and the other half of that coin, not necessarily second in importance, is that in addition to everything that we're trying at the human level, we should also retain our connection with God, our dependence on God, and our prayers to our Creator and Fashioner, the Creator and Controller of the entire universe.
Very interesting and very pertinent to our present situation. Thank you, Dr. Shabir.
You're welcome.
That's a very interesting
Welcome
video
to Let the
by
Quran Speak.
Dr. Shabir. Of course, he spoke a lot when it comes to calamity, how some of these trials, tribulations do happen to us, not just about the Muslim, but then to humans in general. So this comes to my mind. This question actually comes to my mind. Or should I set a scenario first before I ask you a question, which is, the Bible makes us to understand that, of course, everyone was given a report, you understand, the angels, and then, of course, the devil was also one of it. And that's when God asks, you understand, the devil, or should I say the Shaitan, that, do you see my servant, you understand, Job, right? Yeah. And they already asked him, and then he says that, oh, it's because of what you gave him, that's why he served you, you understand, yeah. But if you give to him, then he's going to test, and then we're going to know if I take away those things from him, if he's going to truly serve you. So the question here is, despite the fact that we have talked about innocent trials, tribulation, and then some of the things, and of course, God is so good, so why allowing us to suffer, right? So the question is, who actually causes this tribulation? But before you answer yet, God says in one of his word that if we refuse to obey him, follow his commandment, that he is going to laugh at our calamity. So now back to you. Who created calamity? Who created tribulation? Who created those things?
It means that he laughed us when we are going through those things.
Yeah, so who created
us.
it?
He created all things.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
But it's not for his children.
Okay.
But he can allow it to test us.
Okay.
For us to be able to come back to him, because some of the things he has given us is not being a problem.
Yeah.
That when we have them and we try to say, oh, things are well now, beg, let me reduce what I'm doing for God. So he only allow it. But his plans for us is just for good, right from the beginning.
Okay. So I think that when all those things come to us, it's not that it's coming to actually take us away, but or to actually kill us. If we are to look at the terms of the Job per se.
Since his plans for us is for good, so it actually allow it a bit, as he said that even when we go through the water, the fire, that it will not, he have already promised us that it will not hurt us. And that is the reason why he told Satan, don't touch his soul, don't touch him, but let him feel it a bit, to test him to see if he's actually in love with me because of the things he's getting from me.
So it means that sometimes these things happen to kind of channel our mind to God. So, okay, so is that the reason why he says that, like, he will not allow temptation to overcome us? Whatever he's tempting us with, or whatever trial we go through, is not something that overcomes, but something we can actually withstand it. And that was why our Lord Jesus Christ, after the baptism, he was sent to the wilderness. He was able to overcome the devil despite all those things that happen. So it means that when those trials and tribulation and everything comes to us, it means that we are going to overcome it. That's what it means, right?
Yeah.
But then, okay, so sometimes, let's assume that sometimes probably, let's say in school, right? For instance, okay, I applied for medicine, for instance, to study my MBBS like 4 times, and then it was not possible until when I went on to study engineering.
Okay.
And then after that, I went on to study theology. So is it that if I could have studied the MBBS, there's a likely possibility that I could have not studied theology?
No, it's not that.
So is it that because God was working his own way, even though me as human, I was just seeing myself that is MBBS I want to study, it was just doctor I want to be. So is there a likely possibility that probably I could have been that, and maybe probably I could have not gone into ministry?
It's not that.
Okay, all right.
My own opinion to this is that whichever way, sometimes it may be, some people, it may be the devil fighting them for not them to get that. So in as much, even if devil is fighting you and you go in a wrong direction, God will still fulfill his purpose in the person's life. Even if you study it or not, if he still wants you to be what he wants to be, he's God. He will still turn things around for his own.
So you think that if, like, I study MBBS, I could have still studied theology? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
You
The
sure?
only thing that it will take time, like the children of Israel,
Okay.
it will waste time, and
All
you
right.
still become what he wants you to be.
All right, okay. So guys, this is the end of our video. If you like our reaction, you should like, share, and subscribe. And your thoughts and opinion are all welcome at the comment section. But guys, seriously, I still put this question back to you too. Do you think that if maybe probably I studied my doctorate, right? I studied doctor while I was in school, I could have still go to the School of Theology? I wanted to respond to that question at the comment section, and may God bless you as you do so. So have a wonderful day, and I see you in my next video. Bye bye.